Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of April. It's about 11 a.m. and this isn't even my show. This is Camera Limitations with Greg McMillan, Dave Podner on the iPhoneography podcast.
Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and I am joined by my good buddy Dave Podner, who I'll bring on in a second. Tonight, we are going to have with us a guest, and we're going to talk about the limitations of the iPhone camera. And we have with us Mr. Shayne Mostyn from Down Under, the legend himself.
G'day, mate.
This live stuff, I'm telling you.
Pretty funny. We've all got different gallery views, I think, because you've gone, here's Shayne, but I'm on the other side on my screen. It was pretty funny. I don't know how it went.
So you're over there.
Yeah, on mine, I am.
So we are going to talk about the camera limitations of the iPhone. And I'll tell you how I come up with this. That was, I put something in ChatGPT and I said, what's a good topic of discussion for iPhone photography on a podcast? And that was one of the things that came up. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, we could talk about that. Hey, I'm not going to lie. We got an outline from ChatGPT, and I think it's pretty decent. And there was a few things I took out that, just didn't really make a ton of sense to me, but we will go through them. And if I could just find them, I got so many things on my screen.
Greg, what you sent me, that list, that whole list,
Yeah.
was that generated by ChatGPT?
Yes, except for the things that were like in bold italics. Those are the things that I've added.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
cool.
Oh no, if you either use ChatGPT or the Microsoft Copilot is how they brand it.
Yep.
You can give it give me in fact I'm doing a LinkedIn course on small businesses using chat and how to prompt. And he's using an example of, okay, let's say you have a business you want to get started, a bread making business, a bakery.
Yep.
So, and it's like, well, give me this and I'm this, and what are the limitations and how do I do that? Basically, you're asking it for it to write a business plan, and it comes out with, you give it a good prompt, not pretty. You have to put a little detail into the prompt and a little effort, and it comes out with like pages and pages and pages, and you have to do this, and you should look at this and look at it is a tool. It is a tool that you have that is useful, and something as simple as what are the limitations, and you can even say is give me 6 bullet points and sub bullet points of limitations of the iPhone currently, and it'll boom, 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 boom. And the only thing I like a little bit better about the Microsoft Copilot, and this used to be Bing AI before they rebranded it, it will give you links. So if it's getting information from the from a website, it'll say,
okay,
this website here, this website, this comes from here, this comes from here, this comes from here. So it'll actually give references for sources.
Wow. That's really impressive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at this list that you've sent, and I'm like, wow,
there's no freaking way I could have thought of that.
I would have said a person came up with this, or people came up with this list. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And,
it
cool.
is pretty good. I'm going to apologize for those who are watching live on YouTube. I don't know why it came up as a private video, but we can't get any comments on there. I don't know. But again, this whole thing, I got to get it all sorted out, but I've been so busy with getting my book done, and I might as well give an update on that. So I've sold a few of the digital copies on the Apple bookstore, and that's awesome. I'm very grateful for everybody who bought one. And the print version, I'm waiting to get a copy, and when I do, and I go through it and I make sure it looks good, then I will be able to put a link out there where people can order one. It's just going to be printed on demand. And, for people that are local to me, I'm probably going to buy, a couple dozen or whatever, and maybe sell them to people around here. But as far as the rest of the world goes, I don't know how. I mean, there's the company that does it. They have 5 or 6 places in the world that they actually print it from and ship from. So, for you, Shayne, in Australia, people over there, there's a place in Australia you can order from, type of thing. So that'll make it a little bit easier for people. But I'm expecting to receive it probably within, I don't know, 7 to 10 days, hopefully. And once I go through it and have a quick look at it, then I'll put the link out there and hit the New York bestseller list, hopefully.
Boom.
Probably not, but but anyway, so that's the latest on the book. And there's a link in the description for the ebook, and I'm going to have links on my website and stuff like that too. So anyway, so the iPhone camera, as everybody knows, has its limitations, and we're going to talk about a few of them here tonight. The first
Just
thing
so
is
you
the
know,
technical
Greg,
limitations.
sorry, mate. The chat is working. I can see it there. People are commenting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dale even suggested, should I do a macro version of the book? The text size one, you have to use a macro lens to read it.
Yeah, really. Okay, Dave, I'm going to put you in charge of that then, of the chat, because I can't see it for some reason.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, okay, yeah, I have.
Yeah, it says, for me, it says comments are not supported on private videos. I don't know, but anyway, as long as you can see it, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, a macro book with micro-sized text. I never thought of that. I should have put like a paragraph in there. Just to say you need to use a macro lens to read this. Anyway, so technical limitations of the camera. I mean, first thing is the sensor size is small, and it does have an impact on image quality. And Shayne, you use a DSLR, so you can attest to this. The image quality, and with your night photography, the image quality of a night photo in the iPhone is not what you're going to get out of your DSLR.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. There's with the night stuff that I do, there's a lot more computational stuff that happens because of the size of the sensor versus a DSLR or mirrorless. That's the way that they get around it with phones. But it's obviously a restriction. You can only capture so much light with a teeny tiny sensor.
Yeah. And I mean, Dave, you and I, we've run across that all the time, doing our shots in the dark and whatnot.
Well, yeah, not only shots in the dark, but shots where just having a larger sensor, not only for low light, but there's speed issues and everything else in terms of technical limitation of what you can do with a lens that's, and as we've said a lot of times, Apple's a 90/90 company.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people who listen to the podcast are the 10%, if you will. We're not the ones who are going to take a picture, maybe do a quick little edit in photo and then post it. We're even if we don't use third-party apps, even if you use the built-in one to get all the Apple pixie dust magic sprinkled on your photo, it's still challenging situations. It's seeing it with a different eye. But that's one thing you have to keep in mind is when you're looking and you're framing it, knowing what your camera can and cannot do.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're coming from a camera where the body is $3,000 and the lens is another $2,000, this isn't going to match it.
Yeah.
But you have to think, okay, I'm limited on what I can do. Like there were some shots at the eclipse that, even though the iPhone can do pretty amazing things for a phone and they can get really good pictures, but then you get people who have the full setup and can do things like I saw someone, and the totality was only like 2 hours away from us by a drive. and someone who drove up to Cleveland, and she uses her phone a lot, but she has a full, I don't know what type of body and lens, but she did the time, not time lapse, but the shots where it's like you can the multiple images
the segments
of the sun, the segments as it's going. You can't do that on the phone. Or there may be a program, you can do it, but you're not going to get that kind of crisp, clear images going from, full sun out all the way to totality and out.
There was somebody in that bloody Legends group who did do that with their phone.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly as good as what you're talking about. It's possible to do, but again, it shows that limitation of that little sensor.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is putting your expectations in the right mode and getting out of the Apple bubble, where this is the most wonderful camera we have ever made in pure aluminum. So I mean, it is true. Like the iPhone 16 will be the best iPhone camera. Unless they do something weird with AI and computation where they push it a little too far and just push it beyond what they should. But from the hardware aspect, it's going to be the best hardware out there because the hardware gets better every year. They learn, they're developing, they're working with their suppliers. They see what other companies are doing. They see what works, what doesn't work. It's going to be the best phone out there. Well, you hope things get better. I mean, even if it's a little bit, it gets better.
The stock will definitely take a dive if they come out with a camera that's not better than the one prior.
Yeah.
Because every year they say it's the best camera we've ever made. And I mean, even that's not going to say old.
It's not as good, are they?
Well, no, they're not. They're not going to say, the iPhone 16 Pro camera is, well, it's not as good as the 15 Pro was, but it's not bad. So it's hey, they're a marketing company too, and they're going to say, all the right things and, whatever, but, but it's always, the camera's always going to be better. I'm sure it always will. But like you say, Dave, they could spoil it by overdoing something, and who knows what this AI stuff's going to be, when it comes to the camera. But, one thing that I would like to see, and that's the next point here, is the lack of manual controls compared to DSLRs. I would love to see the Apple camera have a pro mode, have the ISO setting, have the manual focus, all that stuff, have some of that stuff built in. I mean, they've been doing it in the Samsung for I don't know how many years, but in typical Apple style, they always wait till 5, 6, 7 years after Samsung does something, then they do something. But I mean,
also, and I'll say this, also they could hide it in settings like they do the ProMotion video. Because even if you have the Pro phone, unless you go into settings, not inside the camera, but into settings, into camera, click on ProMotion video, you don't have that option. Same thing with RAW and doing RAW. You can set that not to, when you hit the button, to not default to RAW on the camera itself. So they could make it, do it like they do the calculator. You hold the calculator vertical, it's a simple calculator. You do it horizontal, it's a scientific calculator.
Yeah.
Admittedly, you don't want to make it orientation, but you could literally hide it somewhere.
But they don't have to have it in all the phones either. They could have it in the Pro phones.
Yeah, make it in the Pro only, just like the promotions only. Just like the ProMotion and RAW is only in the Pro phones.
Yeah. What do you think, Shayne? Do you think that's something that they should be doing?
Yeah, an under person, I'm going to say exactly the opposite of what you guys just said. I think you got to. I spoke with a bloke about the iPhone camera, a bloke in Apple, and he explained to me that what I'm doing and what we do is a very small percentage of the market, right? And the way he explained it to me was the iPhone camera and phone cameras in general are designed to pull out of your pocket at your kid's birthday party and take a photo. But what we're doing is really pushing the envelope of these phones. And I also spoke with Russell Brown, and he was asking me, Shayne, what is the camera app that you use all the time? And I say it's just the camera app, because from my point of view, I go, there's propeller heads over there in California who are designing this bad boy, and they know a damn sight more about what's in there than what I ever will. And I go, that's the way they designed it to work, and it just works. It's pretty rare for me to go, that camera app doesn't do what I want it to do. It's pretty rare. The long exposure stuff and the more manual macro stuff is pretty much it. And for that, that's where all the apps come into play. That's how I think of it anyway. I think we spoke about this on my live stream one time about what camera apps I use the most and what you use the most and so forth. And I just go, it's the way it's meant to be done. Do it that way. And that's just how I think of it. Like phone photography for me, it's got to be convenient and it's got to be simple. And if it's not those two things, go and get a bloody camera. That's how I think of it. And here I am making a living on people trying to push that thing beyond what it's meant to do.
Really.
I kind of go, even with the Samsung, and I've got them, I've got them. It's how often do I use that manual mode to take a regular? I don't. I just use that camera app in auto mode and just take the photo. It's only when I want to do something outside of what that can do I look for another solution. And that's the same way with the iPhone.
Now, Scott does mention, and something we kind of mentioned in chat, saying, stop calling it a pro camera and marketing is pro if it's not pro. Or open up the APIs fully to devs so they can access the pro controls. And I would say this, there's a couple of minor, I don't want to say minor, but if you want to do time lapse, it'd be nice to have that little extra tweak, then hit time lapse, boom, go. If there was a way to time lapse, boom, go, if you want to make it simple. But we also have, a pro mode or something hit or additional options that you can say, okay, I want it to be a second in between, and I want this to go, that way. If it isn't, but I know if Apple boost up their own apps too much, then all people do is complain and say, well, Apple's just destroying the secondary app market. Because, Apple Sherlock, this camera company, because who's going to buy this camera now? Because Apple now lets you do it internally. So yeah, if they can make it where the APIs are fully up and, can do a little bit more. Cause I remember, my brain just went on me. Greg, what's the camera you like that the third party apps that you
Reflex?
use a lot?
Reflex?
No.
Reheld?
Camera Plus.
Re-expose?
No, it's not one of the Re's. It's an older one. It's an older. It's a little older. It's a little
Pro
older.
camera?
Oh, Halide you're talking about.
Halide. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Halide. Thank you. When Halide wanted to do their own Pro RAW, they had to do their own programming. They couldn't just plug it into the Apple thing and then they said, okay, we had to take the raw and make our own. Thank you, Scott. You just put it in chat. They said, I remember their blog, and their blogs are great for knowing what's going on. They said, and then we had to do our own little special magic to make our own kind of pro raw because Apple didn't give us access to it. So, I mean, there's got to be a way they can plug in, allow people to plug in so you get the third-party apps. So you can do the more complicated without giving away all the Apple magic, which, trust me, that is the one thing they want to really hold in there, is the all in the internal Apple magic. And I hate to call it magic because it is the fact that they can put a chip on the, a specialized chip or a specialized part of the chip just to work on that one little bit of image processing that works with the operating system and the hardware, and they wire it all together and it works so good, versus Samsung, which has to work with the chip part of Samsung, you know, and or Qualcomm, they have to work with Qualcomm and this, and they have to work with this, and they have to somehow, kind of just like why Macs computers sometimes work a lot better than PCs, because you don't have to worry about this working with this, and then working with Microsoft, which has to make a generic operating system. That to me is the Apple magic. So, but it still would be nice if they could allow if they're not going to open it up. And especially they pushed that October event where they said this was shot on iPhone using tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and you can replace your video camera with an iPhone. And well, if you're going to show that, you open it up a little bit more, just a little bit.
Yeah, on the photo side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so
can I ask you guys, notes, with all that in mind, why do you guys use iPhones? Why don't you use a Samsung phone?
Well, for me, the biggest thing is, the privacy and security side of it. But as far as the camera goes, I just think it renders an image better for my liking, but, that being said, based on
for
what
those that are
just
listening on the podcast only, I just kind of went,
yeah. But that being said, it's no secret, I use Reflex as my camera most of the time. The Reflex app just accesses the camera API, same as the Apple camera does. So it's basically using the same thing. It's the interface that I like, right? It's got a histogram. I love using a histogram when I shoot, or the zebra stripes, or focus peaking, or these things that just aren't available in the Apple camera. That's my argument for using a third-party app. And I know I'm just one guy. I'm just one lonely little freaking Canadian here. And I don't expect Apple to cater to me for the sake of everybody. But I think it would be cool if they put that option in the Pro phones, where you can turn some of that stuff on. It doesn't have to be on by default. It can be, hidden in the settings or whatever. But it's not, and that's a good thing for third-party developers. They can do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They could put apps out there. They can, make a living maybe if they sell enough, on apps like this, and it just makes it versatile. You don't get that with the Android side, sadly, because it's so much harder to develop for Android. But Samsung, for instance, they build it into theirs. And that, that kind of makes me a little envious of the people that have these Samsung phones that have that functionality built in. But anyway, I do I think maybe it needs to be put in? I don't know. Like, it's a good argument for, when most people will just use the Apple camera, like you, Shayne. You use it until it don't work, and then you find something else. And that's probably going to be the case with over 90% of the other people that use an iPhone. But to that point too, in the outline, I put some extra points in here that are like in bold italics, and the one for this section, the technical limitations, is ease of use. You point, shoot, and you get a decent photo. You pull it out of your pocket, bang, Bob's your uncle. You got a shot. It's so easy to use, and I think it makes a lot of DSLR shooters, mad or jealous or whatever. I mean, I don't know how many times I've gone in and taken a shot of something and come out with, like, oh, my son's wedding, for instance. I hired a photographer to do the pictures. Well, you know me, I'm not going to leave my phone in my pocket. I'm going to take pictures of people.
No, you're one of those.
I'm showing her one of these. I'm showing her a couple of pictures that I took, and this is back like 2 or 3 phones ago. And she said, how do you get the faces so well exposed with the background and everything? I said, it's a phone. It's an
Yeah.
iPhone. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And with her pictures, she's got to expose for the people, and the background might have to suffer. That type of thing. That's just the nature of the camera and how it works. I said on a recent presentation I did, the iPhone camera works very similar to a traditional camera in a lot of ways, but in there are other ways it doesn't. It works completely differently.
While we were talking about what's in the camera app and what's not, when I spoke to that Apple contact that I have, I was asked, he basically said, if you had a wish list of stuff for the camera, what would it be? And I said 2 things. One of them is an intervalometer, and that in theory should be so simple to put into play, because nothing does better for what I do than the camera app. So if you had an intervalometer in the camera app, that would be a tick off an on button in the settings. And the second thing was to give that 10 seconds to all the developers. Let them do that as well. Because I think about what someone like Mario could do with 10 seconds would be pretty bloody impressive, I think. And you never know. And the response that I got was, that's really cool. He actually had asked for intervalometer prior to me talking to him about it. He didn't know that the developers didn't have 10 seconds. But what he did say was, to put it all into perspective, he is one person in that role in this country. And in every country, there's another one of him asking all his camera team to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. So I guess that everywhere in the world is pulling a different string to that camera development crew. So who knows? Scott Baker says about why do you stick with iPhones? And that was stickers, because he loves stickers, and the blue bubbles. But that's also shooting RAW versus Apple. So I think that's referring to the line gate. The five times zoom, just regular RAW. On that though, the more testing that I've done and the more people who have also tested it, I honestly don't think it's an Apple problem. Now I think this is more an Adobe problem. And
I think so too.
Yeah, my contact at Adobe come back and went, it's not our problem. I've escalated it to Apple. So we fixed that with the iPhone
they're going like
Pro
this.
Max. Yeah. He said it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's an Adobe issue.
Because I think one of you guys said that Snapseed is using the same, what was it?
The same raw rendering thing.
Yeah, that Adobe uses.
The type of deal, yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? I don't think we're going to get it fixed, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, so moving on to another limitation is composition challenges. We're working with a fixed lens, fixed focal length. And I mean, the next point, I might as well just say right now too, adjusting to the limitation of digital zoom. Well, don't use digital zoom. It's not good. The quality just goes for a dump. And, Apple does a great job utilizing multiple cameras to get a great image out of all this stuff. And I mean, it's hard to explain how the camera works. I mean, I can explain it, but that's another show. But you don't want to use digital zoom. The best thing to do is use one of the fixed focal lengths and zoom with your feet, period. That's all there is to that.
Well, now, Greg, I will agree with you. However, sometimes you need to. If you're taking a photo or a video of, let's say, if you're going to a kid's sporting event, or a theater or a recital or something like that, which would be a common thing. You're in the audience, you're going to take a picture of someone playing an instrument or at a play or something. You can't get closer sometimes. And sometimes you need to go beyond 5x. which
yeah.
kind of, but it kind of crazy that Samsung decided to they went to 5x max now on this last one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did.
So they got rid of their 10x, which was, in my mind, their main zoom point was, like, oh, Apple only goes to, at the time, 3. We go all the way to 10, and something we've all mentioned, we don't mention, and moon pictures with a 10, with the ultra 100x zoom. We're like, I don't want to get into that, but they can't even say, it's like, so maybe 5x, you can't, for the size of what you have, the more you try to periscope and deflect the light beams, there's only so much you can compensate for that.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to, the only I think we go more than 5x or 10x is literally a bigger a bigger phone. Someone makes physically, but I still don't see that happening. I mean, it would be great in theory to be able to, if you have let's say you double it to what would be 96 megapixels, or I guess it would be 4 times if you can, again, double
the sensor size.
Yeah, double the sensor size and double the number of pixels.
Then you're looking at like 100 megapixel
type
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But you could zoom in that way because you're just cutting out pixels. You're not interpolating in between, and you can kind of zoom that way. But then you're also talking about how much room is it taking up in the camera here, how you can make it. And this is something that everyone forgets. Apple makes hundreds of millions of these things. You have to be able to make multiples of that, because you're going to lose. You're not going to, let's say we want to sell 150 million. You're not going to make 150 million. You're going to make 250 million and probably lose 30% because it's not up to your standard. And can you do that? Do you have the manufacturing for that? Which, again, it's like, yeah, it would be great. There are times I wish, and times I use, more than like when I'm grabbing Ruth's camera, more than a 5x, or mine more than a 3x, because I need to. I went on a hike and there was a bunny rabbit down the trail, and I didn't necessarily want to get closer because I knew it was scared away. So I had to use a digital zoom. So it'd be great if there was, enhance, zoom, enhance, zoom, enhance. But it's, like I said, it's a physical limitation. It's physics. You can't do certain things, unfortunately.
What I got from that is that you have a very different relationship with bunny rabbits than what farmers here in Australia do.
Well, I'm also not growing crops.
Yeah, of course. See, I look at the list that you sent with this, the limitations, the composition stuff, working with a fixed focal length. I don't see that as a bad thing. I'll run at weddings with prime lenses. It makes you more creative. I honestly don't see a problem with that. Where I would tell people when I would do workshops with phones, I would actually talk about the size of the camera in this thing and that distance between there and there as being a big positive, because you can get that into so many more places than you can a big boy camera. You just get it closer to things, you get it closer to the ground, and so forth. I don't see it as a limitation. I actually see that as a benefit of phone photography.
Well, I agree 100%. And I think maybe ChatGPT was kind of parsing information from traditional cameras and lenses where it's not a limitation, right?
Yeah.
If you got a really good 100 to 400 zoom lens on a, Sony A7R, whatever, you're going to have good quality photos right through the zoom range. Whereas with an iPhone, or any phone, you don't have that. So the fixed focal length, it's just a limitation, I guess, in that regard. So next is finding creative solutions for framing and composition. Well, and I added a point. It came to my head right as soon as I read that you can set the aspect, and Dave, you do this all the time, set the aspect ratio right within the camera to either square or 16:9 to give you a little more room to play with a composition to get at what you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also when it's about finding creative solutions for framing and composition, something to go off with Shayne, we can actually take this thing, kind of put it, like, say, if you want to take pictures of flowers or plants on the ground, just hold it upside down, because it's smart enough to fix the photo. So you don't have to worry about flipping it, and put it literally on the ground and get really, really close. And if you have a watch or a remote, you can actually just set it up, get it stable, walk away so you're not shaking it, even though it does a real good job with, with handheld shakiness, and then take your picture then, which there's no way you can do that. I don't want to say no way. It's very hard to do that. A lot more inconvenient if you have something that's larger, smaller, like I said, a lot of this is knowing your limitations. And there's aggravations involved. There's aggravations involved with everything. Nothing is perfect.
I still can't get Angry Birds on my Sony.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
To put that, just to go on a bit with what you just said there, Dave.
Yeah.
I shoot any. That's how I hold my phone. Yeah, that's how I always hold it, just one-handed, and there's the shutter. Every vertical photo I take it upside down. Every single one. Just so that my mind is already in that space and I can get this closer to the ground when I need to. Even if I'm standing there just taking a photo of like Sarah on her horse or something, I will never go. I just don't. It's always like that. Always. And I get so many people when I'm doing it publicly, they go, "You're holding it upside down." Yeah, but it's called a smartphone, not a dumbass phone. It knows that it's upside down.
Yeah.
So it points it the right way up. I just want to say g'day to Will Newcomb. He's actually in the chat.
Hey, Will.
Yep. And it's later in the day. He always comments on our live stream a few hours afterwards. So he's probably sitting there going, "Why don't you do it this time, Shayne?"
Yeah, really. Yeah, because he's in China. And,
that's right.
I mean, that's kind of in between you and I think, as far as the time goes. Probably closer, a little closer to you, maybe, but
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
but yeah, the joys of a global broadcast,
spanning the world.
Yeah. Well, the next point is something that I'm sure is an irritant to just about every iPhone photographer, and that's it's under a section called environmental factors, and it's dealing with the green lens flare. And that's
when
just
you said
part
environmental
of
and iPhone, I thought, here we bloody go. There's another launch going on.
Oh, no. That's just what it called it. I don't know. I probably could have changed it. But I mean, so I guess when you say an environmental factor, you're dealing with the sun shining into the lens, right? It's part of the environment you're in. And, that green lens flare, a lot of times it's a bit of an annoyance, but there are times when it's kind of cool, if it's just the right kind of flare, that solid green dot, it can be a real hindrance. But let's go back to the last show, Dave, where someone I know took it to their advantage, used it to their advantage.
That is true. That's how I got my eclipse picture. Because the lens flare, because taking a photo, because I took a photo without any filters or anything on the camera, but the lens flare, for whatever reason, I imagine because it is a reflection of a reflection, and that was enough to take down. You actually saw the contour of the eclipse.
So the sun was out of the frame, right? When you took the shot, and all you got in the frame Was the, or did you just crop it? No,
it
you
was
had to
it.
have
I
it
just
in.
cropped it. I
You
cropped
cropped it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
cropped
Sorry,
it. Yeah.
my brain.
No, no. Yeah. When I took the picture, it was in there, but when I cropped it so the sun was out of it. But I still,
Oh.
but the lens flare itself was that crescent of the eclipse, and it
Mhm.
was a nice bluish aqua green.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was still able to get the rest of the sky looking pretty normal because I didn't have to have, still have them here. I didn't have to have these things
Yeah.
in front of
Oh man, they are sexy as
America.
freedom goggles.
Yeah, freedom goggles. There you go.
So on that green flare, I've done a video on this. There's 3 ways to get around that green flare. One is to line that flare up with whatever the light source is. So you change the composition a bit so that lens flare will
Right
move
on there.
to the light. The second way is to edit it out, like just put it into Snapseed or something like that and just use the healing tool to get rid of it. And the third way is to shoot live. If you shoot a live photo, it will never have the green flare in it. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I disagree because the photo I took with the flare for the eclipse was a live photo.
It should get rid of it.
It will get rid of it if the flare itself is in a kind of like an open space, like with Dave's photo. There was a lot of clouds.
I was going to do it now, but Dave's doing it now. I can see you do.
With Dave's photo, there was a lot of clouds in the image, and it won't render out it won't render out that reflection or that flare unless it's a solid, very, very solid background where it could just bang do it when you do a live photo. But yes, it will work with a live photo if the flare, you have to position the flare in a fairly solid background where it could do it without messing it up.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, there's ways, there's ways to play with that flare to, use it to your advantage like Dave did, or, you use it to, you could be creative with it. But I think in most cases, it's probably just a pain in the ass for people with an iPhone or any phone. Like it does the same thing in Samsung, any camera phone, right?
The iPhone is definitely the worst for it. When I'll see it on that video that I did, a lot of comments on that video is, the Samsungs don't do this, the Pixels don't do this, and I kind of go, yeah, bullshit. They all do it. Yeah, it's just physics. You can't get away from it. But the iPhone is the worst for it. It's like those memes where you go, tell me you've got something without telling me you've got something. Like tell me you're in Australia without telling me you're in Australia. I'll turn myself upside down for you. But the iPhone, you could put one of those photos at nighttime in a street with street lights, and you go, tell me you're shooting with an iPhone without telling me, because it's obvious that it's an iPhone.
Now I am curious to see if the rumors on the iPhone 16 where they're changing the coating on the lenses to some kind of nano coating that will lower it down.
Well, they did that with the 15s.
Yeah.
With the 15 Pro, and it is a little better than the 14 was.
Is it 2 times
it's still
better?
There. 2 times better. It's incredible. But so I mean, when it comes to the 16, who knows? I mean,
I've gone through lots of different filters. I think every filter you could possibly get, I've tried it to get rid of it, and none of them do it. I've tried light filters, sepia. I've so many, and it just doesn't. Yeah, it's there.
Yep, it's there. It's there, and it's a pain. The next point is managing exposure in high contrast situations, and I might as well add the next one too. It says adapting to changing lighting conditions on the go. Well, I think ChatGPT is a little off on that because I don't think the iPhone has that much trouble adapting to lighting changes and high contrast lighting with the smart HDR that's built in. I'd love to be able to shut that off, but you can't, not anymore.
Not anymore.
But I mean, you could take a photo with an iPhone, and I mean, any phone really, because they're all getting really good. And you could have a foreground with a sky, and you can have a pretty decent exposure for both. Whereas with a traditional camera, you have to expose for the foreground, take another shot, expose for the sky, do some layering, masking, all that stuff in order to get the same result. The phone just does it. It just does it that much better, I think.
Well, and also with the panoramic, if you're taking a panorama now, it does a really good job.
Yeah.
If you have
really
a bright area over here, darker here, it'll adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
Where before you could tell, if you with an older phone, you could say, oh yeah, it was dark there, it's light there, it's just, but now it's stitching and it's doing all the computational stuff per se.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough talk about that. I totally agree with you, Dave. It's on the older iPhones, it was shite. Like you could see it was all blown out here and it was just black out here. But now you're right. And they don't talk about it. It's one of these things that when they launch the camera, they just go, it's 2 times better. It's incredible and all the rest of it. But they don't, they don't go to that depth of this was what this does now. And it does it so much better than it ever has before. Yeah. The same with the night stuff on the 15. It's so much better, but they don't talk about it. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. But to answer this point here with the overexposing, the high contrasting areas, a lot of the weddings that I shoot are farm weddings. So that's all outdoors. It's usually in the spring, no cloud cover, and I'm shooting in bright, harsh sun. And you can't get around it. And the amount of and what happens here is the amount of photos from all photographers here, you've got to expose for the subject. It's as simple as that. And there's no way around that. But the background is almost always blown out. And it's just the way that we do it here. As long as the subject is exposed properly, it doesn't matter. But with phones, you don't get that. You get exactly what you're talking about. You get the exposed subject and you get exposed background. I think it's just kind of cool.
Well, it's because it's processed on a pixel by pixel basis, right? I mean, it takes multiple photos. I think it's up to like 14 or something now, and uses different parts of different exposures and all that stuff and puts them together. And I mean, they're all taken so quick. It's mind blowing how it all works. But it uses the highlights from this one, the shadows from this one. If there's a person in it, it recognizes that, and it'll use it'll expose for the person and all this stuff, and it masks and all. It just does all this stuff, basically in an instant, and that's how you get this. The traditional cameras just don't do that. They take one shot, bang, that's it. The most processing done in a big boy camera is in a JPEG. It's a processed image. But if you shoot a raw image, then bang, you got the raw data that you have to work with later. Yeah. But it just does it, and it does it well. I thought Smart HDR was pretty cool when it first came out. I mean, I used to like shooting an HDR the way you're supposed to shoot them, and I thought the camera in Lightroom Mobile was probably the best at it because, well, actually, no, it gave you an HDR. It took 3 shots, I think, put them together, and then gave you the image. Yeah. And I always thought it did the best. But once Smart HDR came to the Apple camera, I should test it. I haven't used the camera in Adobe Lightroom Mobile for so long, but I should maybe try that out and see how it is compared to the Smart HDR. It'd be an interesting comparison. Yeah. But you just, you don't have those challenges like that with a phone. I don't even know why that was mentioned in this outline because, I just don't think it's a limitation anymore.
I think ChatGPT uses full frame cameras and is one of these haters of phone cameras.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, and the other thing is too is I don't pay for ChatGPT, so I don't have the latest information. Everything is used, and as far as I know, goes back to like 2021 and before.
Sure, right.
So,
Okay. Yep.
but anyway, next is post-processing constraints. So it could be argued that there are limitations of mobile photography editing apps compared to the desktop software. I say arguable because I think Lightroom Mobile is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I would say this is one of the ones that if you go back in time 3 years, most definitely. Now, no. I think Lightroom I don't use Lightroom on the computer. I do use Lightroom Mobile. So, there are, I'm sure regular full-blown Lightroom that someone's paying lots of money for can do a whole lot more than what I can. And you do get a lot more if you're working on a 20-inch, 30-inch screen. It's a lot easier to deal with the edits and zoom in than if you're trying to do it on a max size screen. But using the mouse but honestly, for I would say 99% of the people out there, the mobile apps work great. I mean, I don't 100% trust the hitting the Adobe, hit the magic button and will do all the work, because I've done that and it was like, oh, this thing looks horrible. But it's a good starting point, and the apps are getting better and better. And I think and I hate to use the term AI here because it's not AI. What it is they're using, probably Adobe has their own license images, and they're saying, okay, here's a bunch of good images. Make this image look like these 10 million. Here's 10 million images here, and smoosh it together. And this is what the sky should look like. This is what the night sky should look like based on all these. And then it'll and it'll compare and it'll make its own edits that way. So that is a machine learning AI. I can see that going forward, improving for the editing apps. But nothing where it's nothing beyond magical. It's just it's brute force. It's literally looking at millions of images, and similar to the outline here, it was able to say, okay, here's an idea, and it's large language model. Boom. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah. I'm not
Shayne,
sure about
you
editing
are the
with,
only...
sorry, mate. Go on.
I was just going to say, you're the only one out of the three of us that has Lightroom on the desktop. And so you've edited some iPhone shots in Lightroom on the desktop. And how do you find it? I mean, obviously you can find it works very well.
Oh, I think both of them work really well.
Let's take it further and compare it to working on the phone. Other than the screen size, I mean, the meat and potatoes of the app itself, of the processing and the algorithms that it uses and all that stuff, pretty comparable, right?
Absolutely. There are some tools that are in the desktop that aren't on the mobile, but that's okay. You need to be able to see them. Some of the color grading tools that are on the desktop is a lot better to use on the desktop. But you can't really do it on the mobile because the screen's only so small, But I think they're both incredible 2 times. But I think as far as mobile editing goes, I don't think anything beats Adobe Lightroom. I can't think of anything that gets close. So you guys might have history with Darkroom. I don't really. I know some guys use that fairly regularly, but I'm very happy with it. And it's not because of my relationship with them or anything. I've used it for long before I started a YouTube channel, and I always will. I think it's a great app. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What you were talking a second ago about, Dave, with the AI and editing. See, I don't really have too much of an issue with AI helping with the photo, like the HDR stuff, but I do have issue with AI editing, like what the what the Pixel does, I don't. I've not even used it. I just know it can do it. I kind of think get it right in the camera. I've always said to people, you can't polish a turd, but you can put glitter on it. Yeah. And last night I had some bloody legends out in the bush taking some photos. And at the end of the photos, we did some Star Trail stuff. And like, okay, Shayne, how do I edit this? And I'm like, what do you want to do? I can tell you how I would edit it, but it doesn't matter what I think, and it shouldn't matter what a computer thinks. It should matter what you think, because it's your image. And I think the more AI that comes into photography on phones, the more my photo is just going to look like yours, Dave, and yours, Greg. We're all going to look the same.
And that is one problem with using these large language models for text. And that's actually an easy way to check to see if something was written by a large language model, because everyone's using the same base information.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking for a quick edit, if let's say you're just doing the equivalent of snapshots, birthday photos, you see a nice thing, just something that you want to do I just want to tweak it a little bit. That would be great.
Yep.
In that case, you're not looking for artistic individuality. You're just looking for, I want to clean up the shot I already have.
Yeah.
The equivalent of, I took a shot, but let me just use the dehaze, the clarity, maybe a little bit boosted. But okay, that's fine. It looks good. Just giving it a little, to give it that little extra. But yeah, for harder edits or, artistic edits, AI can give you ideas.
Yeah.
Yep. You can put in there, you literally could you can upload on some things the photo and say, edit this to look at like this. And it will edit the picture you have, and it'll make adjustments and jumble it up, and it'll get the letters wrong and give people 6 fingers. But because it literally can't do letters. AI art can't do letters still. But it can give you ideas. It can give you a springboard. But then it's up to you this is what I want to put out.
Yeah. And editing can be as simple or as difficult as you want to make it.
Yeah.
You're right. I used to use Darkroom a lot. I have it. I subscribe to it. It's very good. The masking in Lightroom is noticeably better. I will say that. And you know what? We had Brian Matias on here not too long ago, and he's been using his iPhone a little more, as well as, with his DSLR or whatever. But he put a video out on masking and a little trick that Adobe didn't even know about. And it's a masking trick that it works really good for masking out the sky, say. And if you just apply the mask, you get bleeding into the image. If you pixel peep, you'll see some bleeding into the image. But he's figured out a way to flip it on its head, I guess you could say, for lack of better words, so that when the masking is all done, it's perfect or darn close to perfect, depending on how busy the image is. And you save it as a preset. So I've got it in my Lightroom Mobile. I've got it saved as a preset where, if I want to mask out the sky, I hit this preset or whatever, and bang, it just does it so well. And doesn't matter what the picture is. It works however you want, but it's so cool. And that is on the phone. You could do it on the desktop, and he showed it on the desktop, but it works on the phone too. And that is a really powerful thing. That Adobe that's available in a mobile app. I don't think there's another mobile editor out there that can do that. I haven't tried the same thing with Darkroom. I don't even know if you could do it with Darkroom, depending on how the masking works on there and the tools available within that subset of features or whatever. But it's a this whole little section here is called post-processing constraints. And ChatGPT, I think you screwed up again, because you're not really constrained that bad with some of these mobile editing apps. And like I
No.
said, ChatGPT, it parses information from 2 or 3 years ago and beyond. It's not up to date, at least because I don't pay for it. But
when you first sent the list through, I only looked at the titles of all of them. And what I was really surprised about this with this post-processing is that there's nothing in there about print sizing, which when I talk to people about phone photography versus every other sort of photography, and I talk about the main drawbacks with phone photography, one is low light and two is printing. And printing's not even there. I would have thought printing would be there.
To be honest, I think so few people print anymore. It's all shared Facebook.
Absolutely. Yep.
Some Instagram, but mostly I think most of the photos are shared Facebook because of Instagram ignoring photographers. And a lot of the photos that most people take on their phones are family intimate, as in, private information, and like birthday parties, things like that. And you're sharing that with friends and family who maybe like I said, I have nieces and nephews, and they live up in Cleveland, which is a 2-hour drive, which I know for Shayne and maybe for you, Greg, is no big deal.
I'm just ducking down the road for a minute. 2 hours later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Your grocery store is 4 hours away.
It's not that bad, but anyway. So.
Okay, but I like I said, I know there's parts in the U.S. in the Midwest, Nebraska, where your neighbors, 2 miles away.
Yeah.
Literally, there's not another human being from 2 miles in any direction, but it's a decent trek to go up and see them. So we keep up with them via Facebook or Instagram, where you're like, oh, the kids had soccer practice today. And you see, it's like, but we're having a cold snap, and we can see it that way. So the fact you can't print an 8x10 image or larger doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter as much.
But I don't think it's a limitation too much anymore with these phones.
I don't think it's no.
I mean, the 48 megapixel sensor just completely shattered that whole thing. But you could take a 12 megapixel image and make a 24 by 30 out of it easily. It looks great.
Yeah. I'm talking about some of the artwork that I've done with Canon and Sony, and it would be, what are they? 60-inch, like they're very, very large prints. You just couldn't do that with a phone. And get up close to it and have a look at it and still pixel peep at this thing. You just couldn't do it. So to me, that was a detraction from phones. I agree with you though. It's not so much an issue now, especially with things like the Samsung stuff shooting at 200 megapixels. I don't know if you remember, I had a big poster on the wall behind me, and that was an A0 size poster. That was a huge print, and you could pixel peep that thing and it was fine. But they had to be perfect conditions to shoot that. And the same with the 48 megapixel stuff. It has to be a perfect exposure to be able to do that. I can't do it with Astro stuff, for example. You can't shoot 48 megapixel with Astro stuff. It's got all the binning and stuff. So the largest print I've got over here is an A3 size of Astro from a phone, and I couldn't go any larger than that. You just can't. Whereas with a big boy camera, you definitely can. So I guess different strokes, different blokes.
That's right. Yeah. To finish off on the post-processing stuff, I put a positive on there, editing suite right on the device for quick and easy editing. The Photos app has some really good editing tools. Dave and I did a whole show on it one time. And I basically developed my style, I guess you could say, through the Photos editing app. Or the editing in Photos. I just liked the way the brilliance slider. I love the way it works because it's designed to not overexpose or underexpose too much, from one end to the other. It's designed to keep everything without clipping. Doesn't always work, I guess, but depending on the image. but it really helps get a certain look. And then, there's all the other things. And then I quite often will put just a very slight vignette on my images. And because I just like the way, it kind of darkens down the outside a bit and draws your attention to the subject a little more. I don't use it all the time, but quite often I will. And if you were to go through, excuse me, if you were to go through my Instagram feed, especially from, say, 2 years ago, that's when I was really heavily into that style of image, and probably still am. I guess I just don't realize it. But that's how I developed my style. It was through that simple, easy, quick Photos app, Photos editing, and it's to me, that's not a limitation. So again, ChatGPT, smarten up.
So whilst I'm out camping and stuff, I'll take photos whilst I'm out there, and I will often have no reception where I am, no computer where I am, and while I'm sitting at the fire, I'll sit there with my phone and edit images. That's a big plus, I think.
Yeah.
So
what Baker was saying here about the printing with the upscaling programs, no problem. I get that, and it goes back to what I originally said about mobile phone photography. It's in your pocket, and it's got to be easy. Like that doing the upscaling stuff is not a simple process for Jack and Jill at their kid's birthday party to pull out and start doing that. It's an option for us, but we're the minority. Just to answer that point.
Yeah, that's true. Is there anything else in the chat we've missed?
There was something that Dale said earlier about he actually. How good is Dale Lotherington really? Like when you start talking about little problems that you might experience, he's like, have you ever listened to Joe Rogan's podcast? And he's got Jeremy, and he'll start talking about stuff, and then Jamie will go ahead and start researching stuff while they're doing the podcast. Dale Lotherington is our Jamie, because like he's gone off and tested that 5 times issue with Adobe Lightroom's camera using the HDR, and the line's there straight out of the camera.
Oh, really?
it's like, good on you, man. Will Newcomb says, I prefer to shoot 16:9, then I know I can use them in B-roll in videos. I didn't know he did videos. And then can reformat to 4:3. But shooting the 4:3 images often don't crop well to 16:9. Totally get that, because I get through the same issue with my thumbnails for YouTube. I'll take the photos and then go, oh shit, I'm going to lose half of this. Well, not half of it, but I'm going to lose some of this when I crop it down. So now when I shoot my thumbnail, when I remember to do it on site, I'll actually shoot it 16:9. But 16:9 actually is just a cropped version. I don't know if you guys have seen this, that when you choose that if you're in 4:3, then you go 16:9, and it zooms in. So you're actually losing, like it zooms it anyway. It's
you don't lose it though, because if you shoot on the iPhone by 16:9 and you go into crop and freeform, you can stretch out the 4:3. You can stretch it out to 4:3. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know
that. So it's not gone. It's not gone. But it just shows you the 16:9 crop.
Yeah, right.
Of the 4:3 image. But when you go in there, you can say, oh, boom. It basically kind of but it does feel like you're zooming out. When you go away from the 16:9. But because I for a while there I had 16:9 as my default. And there were times like, I went edit, and I went like, oh, it's still there. So I can work on it that way.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
So I think we'll make this next one the last one, and that's connectivity and storage issues. Managing space for large photo galleries. Like I had, I don't know how many years worth of images in my last photos library. When I got my 15 Pro Max, I started a new one. But I had 100 and some gigabytes worth of photos and videos in that library. Now, I pay for extra storage with the with iCloud. I got the 2 terabyte plan, but I share it with my family. And so it's never been an issue for me, but I didn't want that big of a photo library when I started this phone. So I just started from scratch. I could access the old one, easy peasy, on the Mac, not on the iPhone, but on the Mac, I can access it by selecting the other photo gallery, right? So I mean that's a limitation, I guess you could say. But most people though don't want to pay. Like I'm paying $50 a month for Apple Premium One or whatever it is. I got all the services, right?
You're with the so you're paying not just for the photo.
No, I'm paying for
additional things.
TV, music. I got the whole 9 yards, right?
But
because I use that stuff.
I didn't think the Canadian difference was that much.
Oh yeah, it's like $50 a month.
Okay. Yeah, because I pay for just the expanded storage. So I pay for the 2 terabyte iCloud. And I think it's $10 a month.
Yeah.
Just for 2 terabytes. And
that sounds about right.
600 gig of that. And then I'm also paying, because I use Google Photos, I'm paying for that 200 gigabytes of that. And that's like $20 a year.
That's
not too bad. That's not bad. No, that's a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Mainly because I use Google Photos because the search is better and another backup.
Yeah. But I've gotten this question from a lot of people over the years about how to get their photos off their phone onto their computer. And 90%, probably more than 90% of the time, it's a Windows computer. I know I haven't used a Windows computer for years, but I know it used to be that you plug your phone in, it shows up as a drive. You can access that drive, see all the photos, and you used to be able to just drag and drop into a folder on your Windows computer. Is it that way now? I have no idea. I do know that you can still get iTunes on Windows, and that's how you do a backup or all that stuff. But it's getting to the point now where the iPhone might not play nice with other platforms. So, Shayne, has anybody talked to you about any of that stuff? Like, has anybody approached you about that sort of thing?
No, not specifically that, but I don't. No. To answer your question, no one's never asked me about that, and I haven't touched a Windows machine
since your IT days.
I'm going to say for probably 12 years.
Yeah, same here.
And I'm so much happier for it. I don't have to sit here waiting for freaking updates to happen every time I want to check my email. And you guys are talking about backups and backups and backups and backups, and I'm very old school in this way. I have virtually nothing on iCloud. I have, you know what my backups are for photography? They're sitting out in a cabinet out there in a book because we print them. Every probably twice a year, Sarah will get all the photos that we want to keep, just like we used to do old school, and put them in. We only use Snapfish or something it's called. We just use that, and we don't go out and buy the old school photo albums and print the individual photos and put them in like you used to do back in the day. But I kind of go, when it's a backup thing, when you were growing up and people would say, when your house burns down, what's the first thing you grab? Well, it's your photo albums.
Yep.
And I'm still that way in my headspace about how I back up my photos. If you have people around to your house, or you have your kid come around or whatever, and they say, "Oh, do you remember when we did this?" I say, "I've got a photo of that. Hold on, I'll go and grab the book." I don't have to go to the iCloud and go through searching through all my photos to find that photo. I've got it there in a book. And I don't know, I find that we live in an age where we rely so heavily on that internet connection that when that internet connection is not there, And that happens a lot. Before I got Starlink, that happened a lot here. I'd go and pull out a book and show you what I did in 2018, what I did on that holiday that we took, because it's all in a book. I like that. I don't pay for anything.
Do you print one a year, or how do you break it down?
Two a year. Yeah,
2 a year?
She'll do 2 a year. And depending on how busy we are, she might say, "Shit, I haven't done this for 18 months," and she'll do 3 books.
Oh yeah.
But I've got a stack of books out there of the years gone by, of the printing, and it's, like we've spoken about how many photos you take, and I'll bring this back to a little bit to weddings. All right. So when I shoot weddings, and I'm talking to the couple about, before I even shoot the wedding, well, just while we're talking about whether you're going to use me as your photographer or not. And I'll tell people, I'm going to take about 400 photos. You're going to get roughly 400 photos of your day. And you're going to look at those photos, those 400 photos, 3 times. You're going to look at them when I give them to you. You're going to look at them when your mum and dad come around, because they might have paid for it. And you're going to look at those photos again in probably 5 years' time, going, why am I still with this asshole? And you're going to look at these photos. But outside of that, you're going to look at maybe a dozen photos of all those photos. You're going to look at maybe a dozen of those photos regularly. And that's what I refer to as the champion photos, because you've printed them out, you've hung them on the wall, and you see them when you walk past them every day. Or you might have one on your desk at work. You might have one in your wallet if you're old school, things like that. But that's it. You're not going to look at those 388 other photos. You're just not. Because how many times do you want to look at some stranger doing your makeup? You're not going to look at it. You're just not. And you're going to have like a bridal party photo of all the groomsmen, and then all the groomsmen and the bridal part, all the bridesmaids, and you're going to have one photo with them with their flowers, one photo with them without. Are you going to put both of those and put them on the wall? You're not. You're just not. So when you talk about photos from your phone over the years, and you go on a holiday and you take 120 photos on that holiday, are you really going to look at those 120 photos? Honestly, hand on heart, are you honestly going to look at them?
Yeah,
you're going to pick out the champion photos from that holiday, the things that really trigger that emotional memory, and then you'd put them into the book. That's how we deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't take that time to go through and make that selection type of thing, right? But when your iCloud backup gets corrupted or gets hacked or whatever the situation is, I've got books out there with my photos in them. Yeah. But I have a Backblaze backup too.
You get my point, right?
But yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, you know what? It's got me thinking. Great retirement project whenever that time comes.
Next month.
Oh, I wish.
Well, what Dale said here is also a point that I generally bring up around printing your photos. I think I've even done videos about print your photos, because you learn a little bit about photography, and you start taking lots of photos, and then you learn about editing, and you get that little bit better. And there's nothing, and then you go, well, hold on, I've got Instagram now, and I'm going to put my photos on Instagram. And you go, oh, look, I've got 27 likes for that photo. I'm a photographer. But when you print it and hang it on your wall, and then you walk past that photo that you took, that 2:00 in the morning photo of the galactic core rising above this old school railway bridge or something, every time you walk past that, there's an emotional attachment to that. So it makes you just that little bit better, I think, as a photographer. What Dale is saying here, print more photos, it feels great, and appreciate your art daily. And it's important. Like through my house, I've got photos all through our house of all photos that I've taken over the years. There's only 2 photos in this whole house that I didn't take. One of them's of before I really got into photography, and it's just a really cool piece, an artwork piece. And the other's actually yours, Greg. It sits down there on the wall that you sent to me when you sent me the Blue Jays hat. Everything else in here is photos that I've taken. And when I walk past them, I go, yeah, that's a cool photo. That's a cool photo. That's a cool photo.
Yeah, yeah.
It's definitely worth doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Dale's house, I mean, he kind of showed us what he has there, and it's like an art gallery.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
he goes big or he goes home.
Yeah. So when we talk about like all the stuff that we talk about here, we talked about the 90% of the people, 90% of the time. And generally speaking, and I'm very general, we are the 10%.
Yeah.
Well, because we're pushing it just that much further. So as we are that 10%, whether you think we're below the 90% or above the 90%, print your bloody photos, because like we're sitting here going, we're photographers, we're better than the 90, if you like, because we're pushing it that much further. Print your photos out and put them on the wall. They don't need to be the 60-inch things that I'm talking about. Just print them in the size that you're comfortable with for your house. Like you said, Dale's stuff through his house and the photos that he has shown us of his place, it's amazing. And if you you've got photos behind you there, Greg, and some of those are going to be from phones. I put money on it. I don't know if they are. We haven't discussed that. But
all but one. Well, wait, actually, there's so there's 3 in a frame up over there. That's vehicles that I've had in the past.
Yep.
There's one up there that's a Dale Earnhardt Jr. thing that my wife gave me for a gift one time. But everything else is phones. Well, wait. Nope, there's one above that you can't see, but it's from the old Canon days. Yep. But yeah, everything else is phones.
Now, why did you put them on your wall?
Because I like them. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
As Scott says, it's incredible.
It's incredible, yes. So, all right, well...
Will Newcomb says also, warning, retirement projects never happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. All right. Well, I think we've beat this to death about the limitations, and there might be a couple more things here we could go through, but we're not going to go through them. It's getting on here. We're going to quickly go through our recent photos though, and so Dave and I, just about every show we talk about stuff we've taken recently, and Shayne, you've been kind enough to donate a couple for the cause here, so we'll go through them. We'll do Shayne, then Dave, then me, and Shayne, Dave, and me, and that's the order we'll go through. And I will just get my screen share ready here, and you should be able to see that. And for those who are listening on the Audible podcast, look on your screen. You'll be able to see these pictures as we talk about them. I know it works in a few podcast apps. I highly recommend you just use the Apple Podcast app if you're listening on an iPhone, because you not only get to see the screen, the pictures as we talk about them, but there's a transcription on there that you can actually read along with what we're saying. And it's a pretty cool feature. That just started a few months ago in one of the updates. But anyway, so Shayne, this is your first one, and it is pretty cool.
It is cool. This was actually inspired by Dave Podder.
Oh, I had to wonder when I saw that.
Similar to this, and this is the epitome of mobile phone photography. I saw an opportunity. I had a phone in my pocket, took the photo. These are we just call them kites. They are, when you do tractor work and things like that around our place, you roll over snakes and mice and quail and all the rest of it, and these animals come along behind the tractor and pick them up. Yeah. So if there's been a rabbit or something hit by a car in the middle of the night, you'll see these things circling around in the morning, and that's what this was. So he was flying around. I had the 5 times going on, and it was only when he got nice and close to me was I able to get the detail that you see in the feathers and the face. It's, for a phone, I think it's a ripper shot. And for doing what I do, all my astro stuff, it was nice to be able to shoot something that wasn't well planned. There's just a good shot.
And you were out in the paddock when you took this, right? You were plowing.
Correct. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I was just walking out with the dogs in the morning, and there was a rabbit or something that had been knocked over the night before. Yeah. Oh,
okay. I thought you were out helping your neighbor at one point.
There's been so many times where I've been doing exactly that, just driving in a tractor, and these birds, you could almost reach out the window and touch them. They're that close to the tractor, And
Yeah.
there's been so many times where I've just turned the GPS on and grabbed my phone out. Then I've gone, the windows are too dusty, or there's too much mud on the window. I'm not going to get a good photo. And I wouldn't open the window while I'm going, because then the whole cabin will fill with dust. So there's been that many times that there's been opportunity wanting for these photos where they're like just 1.5 meters away from you, flying right next to you.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But because the glass is so dirty on the machine, you never get a really good photo, because the camera wants to focus on that dirt on the glass. That's why. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is a case in point where the smart HDR comes into play. You could see the detail in the underside of the bird, where when obviously the sun is coming on top of the bird, you can see it on its head there.
Yeah.
But it does it so quick because it just does.
Wow.
So apparently I have to go back to the thumbnails to pick the next one. So Dave's done a couple here that are really, really cool. This is like a vintage photo of these cameras, and it just reminds me of this camera store downtown that recently closed up. The owner decided to call it a career after I don't know how many decades, but they had a whole pile of stuff like this on the shelves. And so where did you see this, Dave?
Sure. This is actually at a antique store near me, the Miller's Antique. And this is, I'm trying to remember if it's actually like 3 stories, and it's all antiques. And I think this is in the basement. They have they have phones, they have old typewriters from like the 1920s. It was like portable typewriters because it has a handle, ignoring the fact it's 50 pounds and it's made out of cast iron. But they had these different cameras just on the shelf, and I just love the look. And there people putting style into the camera design, make it look good, just because, especially the one on the left, the Brownie Junior, the gold, and I boosted the gold, and I did some editing to make it look a little more antique and bring out the colors a little bit more, especially in the flash reflector. It wasn't really that rainbow iridescent look, but these things just have a wonderful look to them. Again, like the Brownie one on the left that has that golden, you don't need to have that Art Deco design on it. It really, functionally doesn't add anything, but it just makes it look so cool. And that's why I like a lot. Like I said, you can see the other photos here, and some of the, you can see, there's the different textures that are probably added to grip and everything else. I just love the look, and like the one in the middle with the different, you have the metal, but then you also have the black part with the texture on it. And I just love the look of this, and they were all just kind of laying there in a row, which it just looks so neat.
Yeah.
Compared to modern cameras, like the modern cameras are all very utilitarian. They're all just there. If something's on there, it's there for a purpose, and that's it. There's a few cameras I think now around that you can buy like a different version of them that they just look a bit prettier, but they don't look like this. Like this.
No.
Someone made a really conscious effort to put that pattern on the front of that Brownie. And it's just cool, I think. I think it's very cool.
Yeah. And I like the Kodak right next to the flash thing there. It has some settings on it: hazy sun, bright sun or snow or sand even. That's a conscious decision. That looks to me like it's an aperture setting, because it goes from 8 to 11 to 16. And
it's just the AI, mate. Vintage AI.
Yeah. Incredible.
And even the timer on the Argus on the front there, you've got the instant shot, the time shot. It's just cool the way it's done. I really like that.
Yeah, it's really neat.
like I said, just the little details are just caught my eye when they were on there. It's like, oh, they just look so cool.
Yeah. Well, my first one is not quite as vintage looking, but you know, spring. So I haven't done any flower shots at all really, other than probably this one and maybe one other one. Um, and it's just the front of this house. I was walking the dog and I saw these daffodils and I thought, you know what? I got to get a flower picture before spring's over. And I just shot this. It wasn't originally, I didn't shoot it square, but I cropped it down because on the right there was part of the brickwork that kind of went up and it looked weird. So I cropped that part off, and I think I might have used the 2x focal length for this one. But it was a dull gray day. Of course, the camera made it look brighter, so I brought it back down to closer to what it actually looked like when I took it. And I don't know, I just like the texture of the rocks and of the stonework and everything, you know, in the image, compared to the softness of the flowers. And then I didn't notice when I first took it, but all these little yellow flowers at the base of the daffodils, I thought that's kind of cool too. The guy needs to cut his grass, so.
So this isn't
which is kind of funny. Which is kind of funny because he goes around and cuts people's lawns in the neighborhood.
Oh,
that has a different meaning here, I think, to what it might have with you.
But cutting the grass?
Cutting your neighbor's grass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who knows what he does?
Well, you just said there's a bloke in the neighborhood who goes around cutting everyone's grass. I'm like, that's not cool.
Let's say he does lawn care for people in the neighborhood. I don't think it's a way to say it now without
that's right.
thinking that.
There are ways that you think about that can make anything sound like it's inappropriate.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Just come on my podcast. I'll tell you about it.
So Shayne, you got a fireside shot.
Yeah. It's so with the second channel that I have, this is when I was out camping on just out in the bush near where I am here. And this is exactly what I was talking about with sitting around a campfire editing a photo. So the intent with this photo is just only for Instagram to like put some wording above the fire. And the more I looked at it, so I've edited this in Lightroom and then I edited it in RNI film to give it that vintage sort of look. And while I'm looking at it on the phone, like it looks like that smoke has a pattern, but that's not actually not smoke. It's just a tree in the background.
I wondered.
Okay, I see it. Yeah, I see it now.
I was looking at it going, why is the smoke doing this? And I couldn't get my head around what was going on.
It almost looks like it's crystallizing.
Yeah. And it wasn't until the next morning when I hadn't had a few beers that I went, oh, that's actually the tree, idiot. But what I really like about this, though, is the dynamic range of this image. So I've got a fire really bright in the foreground. It's picked up the ground and the shadow behind it. And there's even stars in the photo. And this is a handheld night mode photo. That's just that's just cool. I think that's really hard to achieve with the big boy camera to get all that in one photo. Yeah. It's just cool. I like it.
Now,
it's relaxing.
Now what app did you say you used for the editing to give it a film look?
RNI film.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I use that for on some of the with all the different things that we do as businesses here in our house. One of them with the beard products that we make. I have a look to all of the social media images there, and I get that look with RNI film. So I'll have a preset in RNI film, and I'll just whack that onto every photo that I take of those products. It just gives it the same uniform look across that social platform.
Yeah, cool. I Okay, so I'm thinking this is probably because of the bright fire. It was probably just a 3 second night shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, before we go any further, I want to jump back about an hour and a half just for a brief moment here. Shayne, you said uh, when developers, if they could just access that 10 seconds.
Yes.
So what you're referring to is the fact that the shutter will work for 10 seconds on the new iPhones, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, because when I remember when you were talking about that, people might be wondering, what does he mean by 10 seconds? The It used to be that the shutter on an iPhone would only stay active for 1 second, but then they moved it up to 3 seconds with the 12 Pro Max,
Yeah.
and then with the 14, I don't know about the 13, but with the 14, I know they.
Yeah.
Pardon?
14 is where
It
the
was
10 seconds started. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so the shutter will remain active for 10 seconds now. And so a 30-second night mode shot is 3 frames of 10 seconds each. And then they put it together, blah, blah, blah. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there, in case people were wondering what that 10 seconds meant. And this shot reminded me that, oh yeah, I meant to ask that. But yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. And I really like the look. It looks like it's an old photograph,
Mhm.
you know, with RNI. RNI is a really good app, and I don't use it enough, to be honest with you. Dave, another vintage shot here.
So this is when you were talking about going around and just editing on the fly. Both the other shot and this shot, I took them on the same day when we were just walking around the vintage store, and I was editing while I was walking around.
Oh,
So
really?
this was all done on the phone as I'm walking around. Combination of Lightroom Mobile, Snapseed. I don't think I did. I think those are the two I use with the different options, and I may even done a little work in Photomator Pro. So I may use like 3 or 4 different apps. So this is vintage wind up clocks, and I just like the way they all kind of lined up there, and it felt like it's something that should be black and white. So just because of the age of the clocks and kind of the clutter behind it and the other things around it, and using Snapseed and some of their additional filters and tools they have to kind of give it that faded look with that looks like it's an old photo that's been water that has water damage on it, and a little you can tell it's like black and white, but it's a little faded to a shade, so it's not like stark black and white. So I just wanted to give that old time feel to it there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to ask, did you wind them all up, set the alarms, and then walk away?
I did not. No, I did not do that. No.
I'm trying to pull something up on my phone here real quick there.
There is a show that we watched a while ago on Netflix or something like that called Deadwood. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like
Western,
yeah. At the beginning of that show, I think maybe on the first season they had like just like slide images sort of thing of old school things. That's exactly what this looks like. You absolutely nailed the whole vintage thing, I reckon.
It looks like my
your timers,
my clock widget. No, this is my clock widget.
Oh, okay.
I've got well, actually, I just added the widget now to show that, but to bring the screen down. It looks like my clock widget because I have I'll have like my time zone. Dave and I are in the same time zone, and then I'll have London, England, you know, for Addison. Then I'll have Melbourne for you, Shayne, and then I might have, you know, maybe Cupertino or something for out west. I'll have usually 3 or 4 time zones showing on my phone so that I know that if I'm gonna have to, if I contact this person, this is what time it is for them, and I'll know. Okay, well, if they're sleeping, I'm not going to bother. So that it's just when you know people all over the world, which everybody does now. It's kind of
A nice thing to have.
necessary. Yeah, nice thing to have. But I love that. I could tell by the grunge look that it was Snapseed. I wouldn't have known the other apps that were involved, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think looking at this photo, you will absolutely love RNI Films, Dave.
Yeah, and there's there's a good hearty lot of free stuff in that too, isn't there? In RNI.
I actually thought it was free, to be honest. I might be wrong in saying that.
No, it is a script. It is a subscription.
Okay. I've had it for such a long time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, how much is it, I did happen to look it up. Well, let me go back here. It's one of those, it's kind of confusing the way they write it. Right. The yearly pro subscription is $10. I'm rounding up.
That's not bad.
The monthly pro is $2. There's also some 99-cent options, but I don't know whether are full details.
It's probably certain packs, certain film looks or something, maybe.
Yeah, because there's like negative pack 1, vintage pack 1, negative pack 2, instant pack 1, BW pack 1, and they're $4. So I imagine they're one-time purchases instead of subscriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they have another free RNI Arrow, which is an infrared, but there's the additional other things on top of that.
What I've got here, so I'll get it anyway. If you have a look at the bottom of that screen, you can see that some of them are pro and some of them are not. So I didn't pay for this. I don't have it on a subscription at all. I was just thinking, I don't think I paid for this thing. But you've got, I don't know, there's maybe a dozen in each one, like there's vintage, negative, slide, instant, and there's probably a dozen filters within each of those. There's definitely pro things there that you can pay for, but even from within each one of those, you can still adjust all the regular things that you adjust in any other editing app, all your exposure, your shadows, and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just get to our last one here, which is my second one. And it's my Twuck.
That's a nice butt.
Yeah. I took this because I put these new taillights in it. These are not the stock taillights. But the reason I'm putting this on the show is to illustrate that when you take a picture of a vehicle, I'm in this Facebook group with these Toyota Tacomas, and just about everybody that puts a picture of their Tacoma in there, they're using their, main camera on their phone, which gives a wide angle shot. And of course they want to stand up close to it, and it just completely distorts the image. Like it distorts the way the truck looks. So this was taken after work one morning. I got off at 7:00 in the morning, and I was on my way home, and I pulled into this place here, and I would have loved to rip through that field with this thing, but it's not my field. But I went all the way across the road and used the 5X to take it so that it looks actually proportionally correct. I think it just makes for a better image of a vehicle. So, basically that's my purpose of showing this is when you're doing a picture of a car or a vehicle, if you can get back and use the the longest focal length that you have available. And if you have a pro phone, then it's either the 3X or the 5X or whatever. And I just think it makes a better image. So I might as well talk about this for a second. I've done some modifications, I guess you could say, to this thing. I've put those rain deflectors on the windows and put black lettering in the tailgate where it says Tacoma, and I've blacked out where it says V6 on the tailgate and Tacoma on the front door there. They used to be chrome. I blackened those out, and then I put the running boards on, and I just think it looks like the freaking coolest Tacoma around. But it doesn't have a YouTube channel like Shayne's truck does.
What's in the back window?
That is a teddy bear that my wife's sister gave her before she passed away. So we carry it with us all the time.
I thought it was your dog or something.
No.
That makes sense now. That's cool.
The dog sits on the console, like between the two front seats. I call it her perch, and she'll sit there, and
Yep.
and if she knows that we're going on the highway, then she gets in the back seat and lays down.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no, I really like this thing, and it's been a lot of fun customizing it, making it our own, and the tail lights was the final thing to get the look I wanted.
Yep.
And if you want to see more pictures of it, it's 22 Blue Tacoma on Instagram.
Shameless plug.
Yep, might as well. So anyway, well, that's our recent photos, and it's been a lot of fun having you on, Shayne.
Thanks.
Great discussion about the limitations of the camera and all that stuff, and we'll probably do something similar on Friday. Well, Friday for me, Saturday for you. If we're going to do a live this weekend,
I'm going to jump onto ChatGPT and see what we're going to talk about.
Do it. see what it says. But anyway, I guess we'll call it a night. Tell everybody where they can find you.
On YouTube.
Online.
If you come down Curvins Road,
yeah.
On YouTube, just search
right near McMillan Street, isn't it?
It is actually.
I know.
Oh, that's a bit scary, Greg. How do you know that?
Well, I was looking on a map at one time.
Yeah.
I think I was looking up your address, and I knew it would be on the map or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, because the road joins onto McMillan's Road. I thought, wow, that's a bit. How did you know that? Stalkerish, very stalkerish. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube and everything really, or just Shayne Mostyn. You'll find me.
Yeah, there's been a link to the channel in our show notes for
yes, there has
the dog's age. So yeah.
Yes. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really, really enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, I'm glad. And this was literally planned at like half an hour before we started. So, thanks for coming on short notice and adding great value to the conversation.
No one ever says that about me.
How about you, Dave? Tell us where they can find you.
Sure, you can find me pretty much on all social media as Prof Pod, and as long as it's still up and running, and the U.S. government hasn't shut it down yet, I'm on TikTok at Prof Pod PGH.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen there? But you can find me at, and here comes my Canadian accent, about.me/McMillan. I should literally get them to change that to a boot.
Boot.
Anyway, that's where all the links are. If you go to my website, mcmillan.photos, there's a web page called Book, and you can find the link to the ebook there. And pretty soon there'll be the link to the paper or the printed version. And I can't wait to get that out there. Really excited about it. It's been 4 years in the making. So I hope people can learn stuff from it. I see Scott Baker did a focus stacked image. And hopefully I didn't lead him too far astray with the way I wrote about that. But it's nice to see, if people can learn one thing from that book, I'm happy. And that's all I care about. But I'm already thinking about my next one. Won't take 4 years to do, though.
It's going to
hopefully
be inverted photos.
Yeah. It's just going to be one picture of the phone upside down, close to the ground. That's the book. Anyway, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all those who joined us on YouTube. And thanks for listening in the audio version after the fact. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Peace, guys.
Have a great one, everyone.
Unless you want to do it.
What do you say?
You should do it like you do your live stream.
So we're doing what was the title of this thing? Camera limitations. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to do it?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it'd be funny.
Funny.
And then just say, oh, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong show or something. I don't know.